How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We got a lot to talk about here today. Do we ever? Got Dave Meltzer coming up in the second segment of the show. We'll talk about the latest stories in the newest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. But in addition to that, we got a lot of news, and we're going to take your phone calls, emails, text messages about all of it. 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. So, where to begin? A couple of days ago, we were talking about ratings. Is there anything they can do to turn everything around immediately? I said, no, it's going to be a slow, incremental build. And, in fact, it will be. But whatever they did Monday, whatever they did at the, whether it was the pay-per-view, the Elimination Chamber show on Sunday night, or the announcement that the NXT guys were backstage, whatever it was, Raw did 500,000 extra viewers at the beginning of the show. It opened with 3.05 million viewers. I can't even tell you the last time they broke 3 million viewers for the opening segment of the show. Now, from there, everybody watched that first hour, and whatever it was, by the end of the show, they were back down to 2.43 million viewers. So they got a big bump for something, and then it all went back to normal. SmackDown did their best number in a long time. 2.269 million viewers, best number since November 13 of 2018. Now, maybe that was some fallout from the Elimination Chamber. Maybe it was people interested in Ricochet, Gargano, Aleister Black, all of the call-ups. But the key here, because it'll make people mad when I point this out, the key here is that it is a one-show thing for now. We'll see what the show does next week. You can look at it and go, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. It could have been nothing. Could have been just a coincidence. But yes, I should note, Becky Lynch was on neither show. The alleged hottest star in the company. She was not on Raw, she was not on SmackDown. They both did huge numbers. So there's not always correlation. Back in a moment, talk about more of this. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. All the emails come in right now, all the text messages. Everybody's trying to figure out these ratings. Raw on Monday, the biggest TV audience since before the start of the most recent NFL season. Buoyed by a first hour that broke 3 million viewers for the first time since August. Raw had an average of 2.771 million viewers, largest total since September 3rd, 2018. Number top, the Raw after the Royal Rumble, which did 2.70 million viewers. Possible, the late afternoon tease of Ricochet, Gargano, Ciampa, and Aleister Black debuting helped the ratings rebound. There was a big drop of over 20% from Hour 1 to Hour 3, with that being one of the 10 highest drops in history. Monday's Raw also got a bump from taking place the night after the Elimination Chamber. First hour, 3.05 million. Second hour dropped to 2.84. Third hour dropped to 2.43. On the heels of the ratings rebound, SmackDown drew the brand's biggest numbers of 2019. 2.269 million viewers on USA. Best number since November 13, 2018. SmackDown retained 82% of Raw's audience from Monday night, down 13%, however, from last year. We don't have the hourly numbers, but that's SmackDown. So, here's the thing about the numbers, everybody, as everybody analyzes this. Like I said a couple of days ago, you need to look at the pattern over a month, 2 months, 4 months. Next week, they very well could be right back where they were a week ago. If they continue to stay high, then that's a great thing for WWE, and we'll have to figure out what it is that led to that increase. But everybody trying to figure out one specific thing or this or that, here's the deal. Becky Lynch, not on either show. Shows did much better numbers. So, if you don't like Becky Lynch, you could point out that, she's actually hurting the ratings. Is it likely that Becky is hurting the ratings? No. Is it likely that she's driving off viewers? No. Is it likely that because she wasn't on the shows did better? Very, very unlikely, okay? But here's the other thing. Everybody talking about the NXT stars. Oh my God, everybody tuned in to see the NXT guys. Well, The NXT guys were announced at the beginning of Raw, and yes, it did 3.05 million viewers. They wrestled throughout the show. So, if you were really interested in seeing DIY wrestling and Ricochet wrestling, why did you turn off the show in Hour 2 and Hour 3? And Aleister Black, all those guys. So, you're telling me that people were interested in hearing that they were there, but they weren't interested in seeing them? Because they didn't stick around to see them. So, you could make the argument that I guess maybe they helped at the beginning, but why? Why, if you were interested in them, would you not watch the rest of the show? At the end of the day, there was something that happened, probably the fallout of Elimination Chamber, that caused people to tune in at the beginning of Raw, and there was something from Elimination Chamber that probably got people tuning into SmackDown. I mean, you could argue Kofi Kingston, but Kofi Kingston is not on Raw, so why would people tune in at the beginning of Raw to see Kofi Kingston? And Kofi Kingston lost at the Elimination Chamber, so why was there this big presumption that he was going to be getting this big push on SmackDown, which he didn't even get until the very, very end of the show? So they're just ratings, everybody. Sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down, but you got to look at the long-term pattern.
Yes, you do. Nothing is done overnight. We talked about that this week, and who knows? It could be all of those things you mentioned that drove up the rating, and it could have been none of those things. It could have just randomly happened, where it just happened to be everybody was tuning in because no one caught Elimination Chamber because they were watching the All-Star Game or whatever else was on Sunday night, and it just, we're in WrestleMania season. Hey, what's going on? And they checked it out, and then they left. Who knows why? We'll have to see what happens, but again, you just have to build on the good things that you're doing, whether it be Becky Lynch or anything else. And I think anybody that wants to bring up Becky Lynch as an example of, the show did better with her not on it, I mean, it's a completely ricynical statement. And what they're doing with her. Well, it did,
but I don't think it's because of her. It's just a fact.
I know. You just... a cynic would say you keep pointing it out with her nonstop when it comes to anything.
Because everybody talks. Listen, everybody talks about how over Becky Lynch is. And I'm not denying that the people like her, but I went to SmackDown, there was nobody there, and her presence or not presence on the show seems to have zero to do with the numbers. If she's there, sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low.
Sure.
If she's not there, sometimes they're as high as they've been since September.
Yeah, but you could, honest to God, Brian, you can say that almost about anybody because the whole is...
Because nobody's over, including Becky, as an actual draw.
And also, too, let's not forget the WWF and WWE has built its business by saying the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and they have ground things down to a point where because everything's 50-50 and nobody's a star, there are very few people that ultimately have moved the needle in the last couple of years, and unfortunately for them right now, all of those people are gone, but still, the things that they're doing right, we need to celebrate, so they keep doing them, and we keep trying to move forward.
Well, my point is we don't know what they're doing right. We have no idea what caused this 1 week bump. You know what it could be, everybody?
But Brian...
You know what it could be?
What?
It was supposed to go up when football ended, and it didn't. Maybe now it's going back up to where it was before football. I don't know why it took an extra month. I don't know why people weren't into the Rumble. I mean, maybe it was because if you look at the Rumble...
football fan... Where have the football fans been?
I don't know where they've been. I'm just pointing out that every year when football season ends... the Raw number usually bumps up to where it was, or very close to where it was before football season. That didn't happen this year. For some reason, people didn't come back. But now they're back. Maybe we're a month closer to WrestleMania, and there's more of a direction, and now people are into it. I don't know. Maybe next week everything will be back to normal. Who knows?
But what they did with Becky Lynch was a good thing. Featuring tag teams, no matter how ridiculous they are in some ways with like The Miz and Shane, stuff like that's a good thing. We know what the good things are, and they may not be the best ratings movers or anything like that, so no, we don't technically know what's working right now until we're able to pull back and see the bigger picture. But we know at our core that what they're doing is the right thing. Whether you like what they're doing for the WrestleMania main event or not, featuring Becky in a good way, keeping Ronda safe. I mean, those types of things are good things right now. There's so much bad we can talk about, and there's so much, painful stuff we talk about. We know what's actually working, and those are the things they need to concentrate on.
Well, I guess you do. I don't know what's working. I have no idea. I do know that the special announcement from NXT this week was not a television deal, nor was it that people are going to NXT from the main roster. They revealed the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is back. Now, at the tapings last night, you'll never guess who showed up. Sasha Banks and Bayley showed up.
Oh.
And they announced that at some point they're probably going to defend the titles in NXT, which we knew. But I just think it's interesting because poor Ty Dillinger announces he wants out on Tuesday, about a week after he announced that he wanted to go back to NXT, and they told him, you can't. So he decided he wants to quit. And then a week later, here's Sasha Banks and Bayley showing up at the NXT television tapings. I just thought that was ironic. That's the way they do things.
Did you report the spoiler and put it out there that Bayley and Sasha actually defended their titles against the Forgotten Sons?
Oh, get out of here. Don't even get me into the Forgotten Sons stuff. I should spoil that, but I'm not gonna. NXT tapings. On January 30th, Velveteen Dream pinned Johnny Gargano to win the title, and then Gargano attacked Dream, made him tap out to the Gargano escape, and then left with the championship, which he then carried around. So basically they taped two endings, and the idea was, well, now we don't know who's going to win till it airs. So the answer, everybody, is that Velveteen Dream won. They aired that finish. He is the champion. Johnny Gargano ended up being the champion for 4 days, although I'm sure in the official canon of NXT, he was champion for 25 days.
He's still got a belt.
No, he doesn't.
I saw him on Raw. He had a belt.
He had a belt because it hadn't aired yet. Oh. He's not going to have belt next time.
My God, this is like the WCW Universal Studios tapings.
That's different because they taped two endings. Back then, they only taped one ending, and then the guys still ran around as champions.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you have any time to do something live on a Raw or a SmackDown where Dream wins that title from there, and that's how he goes into those new shows that air?
What are you talking about? He already won the title. He won it last night on NXT.
Yeah, I know. But, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
All right. Netflix.
You spoiled that for everybody, by the way.
Hulk Hogan, I spoiled that he won the title?
I don't know.
It aired on TV last night. What are you talking about?
Just messing with you. Go ahead.
Hulk Hogan biopic has been announced. Netflix close to finalizing a deal. Chris Hemsworth, a normal-looking guy from Australia, pegged to play Hulk Hogan. Okay. Well, maybe it's going to be awesome. We'll see.
Wasn't he Thor?
Did you know that Bradley Cooper, Michael Sugar, and Eric Bischoff will be serving as producers for this biopic?
That was a little further down that Hollywood Reporter story.
Going to avoid the story about Gawker, the sex tape, derogatory racial language. Just the story of a young fellow working the docks and coming up in professional wrestling.
Getting his leg broke by Hiro Matsuda.
Hollywood Reporter says the Hogan movie project is in the midst of closing with Netflix. How exciting is that, everybody? So those are the big news stories. We're going to head to a break. When we come back, Dave Meltzer is going to be on the show. And then we will take your calls, emails, text messages, all that fun stuff afterwards. So stick around. We'll be right back. Wrestling Observer Live. Back on the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Dave Meltzer joining us here today. New edition of The Observer is up on the front page. And before we get into that, Dave, did you see the Iizuka retirement match here today?
No, I haven't seen it. I've been busy watching the George St. Pierre retirement.
Oh, man. So. I can't believe they didn't pay off that deal with Tenzan.
Yeah, I guess they didn't at the end. They swerved it and everything, but everyone said it was really a tremendous scene.
Well, there you go. We'll talk about that after we watch it, everybody. Tell us about GSP's retirement.
Well, he was very classy going out. You know, he said that he understood why the match wasn't made. He said he didn't have the hunger anymore. He'll always keep training. And just felt that it was better to go out at this point in time when you're still on top, and that he told Dana White, and Dana White thought it was a good time to go out as well. So just said that he feels physically he could do it, but he doesn't have the hunger. He's a different person, and, you know, in fighting, if you don't have the hunger, you probably shouldn't do it.
All right, if we take everything into account, wins, losses, caliber of opponent, whether or not a person's ever failed for PEDs multiple times, where would he rank as among the greatest of all time?
The greatest, without a doubt. I mean, his opponents were far, far better than Fedor's. Anderson Silva failed several drug tests. John Jones failed several drug tests. Those are the big four. So it's George, and with no reservation.
So Any other big notes from the press conference? Was it all just GSP or any other? Was it his press conference or UFC's?
He announced his retirement. He basically said the same thing that we talked about last night. As far as like the Khabib fight, he said that he would love to do it, but he understands the UFC doesn't want a guy. They want to be building the future. They don't want a guy who's going to come in and then maybe never fight again. So he understands why that they didn't book the fight.
All right, so obviously one of the big stories here today is Raw and Smackdown ratings. I don't know if there's a lot to read into it for 1 week, but what do you make of this?
Well, I mean, 1 week ratings. I don't really think there's a lot to read into it, but they were both up, so that's good. I think that it's probably the pay-per-view, had to do with the Raw rating and probably the SmackDown rating. So stuff off the pay-per-view. Which would be the Kofi Kingston stuff and the angle with the women. And, as far as the debuting of the new characters, I would think that I don't think that really helped Raw because of the drop, as the show went on, but SmackDown was up.
Yeah, they didn't stay for the matches.
What?
They didn't stay for the matches.
What did you say?
They didn't stay for the matches.
I would say for SmackDown, I would say that it probably is a factor. Bringing new people in, that is, that's the one. Bring them in smartly, and they did this time, unlike the previous times. That new blood always interjects. Sometimes it rebuilds and it takes a while, but new blood usually revitalizes stuff. If it's the right new blood and it's promoted the right way, obviously. You can bring new people in and immediately 50-50 them, and they're not going to mean anything. And if they do that next week, then these guys won't mean anything either.
Dave, do you know what the social media stats were on Elimination Chamber? Because do you think some of the bump was the fact that because there was Daytona and the All-Star Game and the UFC and everything else going on, do you know what the eyeballs were?
They did better than expected.
Oh, okay.
The pay-per-view. They didn't do, it wasn't Royal Rumble, but...
These fans are passionate right now.
Yeah, they did better than the B shows. They beat the UFC. Obviously, they got killed by Daytona 500 in the NBA All-Star Game. They were, nowhere close to those numbers, but nobody would expect them to be either.
So we've got WrestleMania coming, and any new updates from the Observer this week as far as matches?
Not really. The whole WrestleMania card is there's just really not much to it other than the stuff that we already know. I think they have an opponent for Daniel Bryan, but that may change because of the Kofi Kingston thing. So that may,
Well, very quickly, tell everyone the story of what happened on Monday with that show.
Well, that's going to take forever. But the basics, just as far as like the Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston was not the scheduled main event for Fastlane, and because of the reaction on Sunday, Vince McMahon changed direction and made Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston the main event for Fastlane. How that relates to WrestleMania, I don't know. What happened, Seth Rollins was supposed to be all over the show, for his return, and Seth Rollins was not medically cleared. They found that out the day of the show, so they had to rewrite the show in a couple of hours, and, they were still writing the show after the show was already started. So it was a mess, and there was a lot of things going on that led to major continuity problems. One of the matches that they had scheduled was Finn Balor against Ricochet, and then Paul Levesque didn't like the idea of that. He had good reason not to, and so that was changed to a tag match with them as a team against Bobby Lashley and Leo Rush, which they had split up the day before, and then they were back together. The Ronda Rousey Ruby Riott match was not scheduled. It was supposed to be Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss in a quick squash, 90-second match. And then when it was changed to wanting Ronda Rousey in the main event segment that would go 15 minutes, the feeling was that her against Alexa Bliss wouldn't be a good idea. So then they went with Ruby Riott, even though Ruby Riott had lost in 90 seconds the day before. So it's just a combination of things that led to a lot of changes, and that's why the show was the way it was.
So I have an odd question you may not be able to answer, but Seth Rollins, they expected him to be cleared, but then he wasn't cleared. And, my understanding was that he had a back injury.
Back injury, yeah.
I don't even know what they do to decide whether he's cleared or not. Do they have him try and deadlift something?
Either.
It's just weird. I understand a concussion.
He didn't recover as quick as they hoped for. the last I heard is they thought he would be cleared by next Monday, but who knows?
All right.
But I mean, the thing is originally he was going to take. Well, maybe this was the time off. He was supposed to take several weeks off to heal the back. I mean, and because the whole thing is he's got to be healthy for WrestleMania. That's the key. They don't want him at 60% at WrestleMania. They want him at whatever percent that he's going to be. But
so like him several weeks off and then write a whole show around him 2 weeks later.
Yeah, well, it's weird.
Dave, I got one for you. It's it's a little bit odd, but Zion Williamson getting hurt last night, and there's a lot of people now saying, all right, his career, shut it down, just forget about everything till you go into the pros. There's a rule because of the way the unions are set up that the NFL and the NBA have where guys can't go straight from high school into the pros. The rule that exists isn't an NCAA thing. It's actually a union thing. When it comes to the XFL, do you think they have any chance at all of being able to lure anyone from a college and using Oliver Luck and his knowledge of the NCAA for that? Because I'm not sure exactly how else they're going to get players, and I know the AAF's having issues right now, but do you think that's a hole that the Vince McMahon could possibly try to exploit, especially if they hold to their word that they're not going to bring in guys who have character issues or guys who've been thrown out of the NFL? How else are they going to get guys? Because to me, drawing people from high school may be the only way with the lure of knowing they're at least going to get paid.
Yeah, but the problem is that they're going to sign guys to long-term contracts, and some of those guys will want to play in the NFL. So that's the drawback to it. Would they do it? I mean, I could see them doing that. Wasn't one of the leagues, and I think it might have been a league where one of the guys that I used to know, maybe like is there a league that was starting up with Ed McCaffrey?
Well, I know there's a players' league starting up that Ricky Williams is involved with that they wanted to do where it was going to be.
They were going to sign players for that like were kicked out of college or didn't want to play college that couldn't.
Yeah,
go to
Terrell
the NFL.
Owens. I think other people were involved with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I had heard of that league, but as far as Vince, I haven't heard. But yeah, that would make sense to get some higher caliber of players, of guys that are good players, but for whatever reason aren't playing college ball and aren't eligible for the NFL yet.
Yeah, just look at Zion Williamson's issue last night, and it's like, I know that's a basketball issue specifically, but it does actually transcend for young people across all sports where there might be an issue with trying to get in or there is some sort of waiting period.
What's interesting is that the WWE, and there's no rule and it could be violated, but the WWE is a general practice when it comes to college wrestlers that they won't take them until their 4 years are up, because they don't want to be seen as poaching guys from college teams, and they want to maintain a good relationship with college wrestling programs, Gerald Briscoe in particular. So, if somebody were to quit college, I'm sure that they would violate, but and it dates back to Brock Lesnar when they were recruiting Brock Lesnar as a junior, or they wanted to recruit Brock Lesnar as a junior. Jay Robinson said, if you come to him with this kind of money,
I hate to cut you off, but we got to head to a break. Sorry, Dave. We'll plug the Observer when we come back. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Let's get back on track here after that XFL derailment right there.
Oh, God.
Got a lot to get
Becky
into.
Some more?
I'm not yelling at Becky, you numbskull. I'm pointing out facts. People don't like the facts. That's their problem. They got to deal with it.
Jesus.
Just telling you what happened. She missed 2 shows. The ratings were higher than they've been since September. What do you want me to do about it? Lie? I got a lot to get into. If you want to text us here, we got a lot of these here, everybody. And by the way, first
Bryan
off,
Alvarez wants all the smoke.
Calm down. 844-411-5411 is the phone number. Text messages 425-780-7566. Yes, I got a lot of people here saying, Bryan, Chris Hemsworth isn't a normal guy. He's Thor. Oh, Chris Hemsworth was in Thor. What you going to do when Thor runs wild on you? Guys, have you seen this guy in Thor? Okay? He looks like...
Did you?
He looks like... what was that movie?
Thor?
That Brad Pitt movie where he was Achilles or whatever. Okay? That's what Chris Hemsworth looks like. He's an in-shape guy. He's big. He ain't that big. Yes, he's got long blonde hair. Okay? But, like, have you guys seen Hulk Hogan in the 80s? Hulk Hogan is at least twice the size of Chris Hemsworth in Thor. Okay? He's not Australian. He's mostly bald even by that point. I guess they could shave this poor guy's head. I bet he's going to love that. We're going to shave a bald eagle mullet on you, buddy, for the next 3 months. Yeah, I'm sure he can grow a handlebar mustache. But I mean, dude, we're talking about Hulk Hogan right here. You know how many big blonde bodybuilders, 9,000 promotions tried to turn into Hulk Hogan in the 80s and 90s, and you know how many got over as Hulk Hogan? 0. Those guys were actually wrestlers. Okay? Maybe Chris Hemsworth could play Luger. But man, get out of here. Come on. You kidding me? We're talking about Hulk Hogan here. That's like going, oh, my buddy Rob's got gray hair. He could play Ric Flair. Are you kidding? Have you seen him do interviews on this show? It never happened.
Could he play Bischoff?
He could probably play Bischoff at the end. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Bryan?
What's up?
How's it going, Mike?
That's all right.
Just a quick two-parter. You guys hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on?
All right. So I just have a quick two-parter. So yesterday, Mike brought up how it would be nice to have Kofi be champion, and we'll have a rare black champion also. And you stated saying that there's been plenty of black heavyweight champions. I just want to counteract that. In the 40-year history of the WWF and WWE, there's only been 2 black champions. One, Mark Henry, and then The Rock, who is part black, and he never represented for the culture as the top guy. So, I'm iffy on that one as well. So
okay.
Basically, my point is just stop hating on making Kofi a top star and put the belt on him.
What are you? Hold on, buddy.
Hey,
listen.
Right now.
Hey, you were doing great there for a while. You're right. I was incorrect. It depends on what you consider like a WWE world champion. Like, are we talking about the ECW title when they were actually trying to make it a third brand? Because if you are, you've got Ezekiel Jackson, you've got Bobby Lashley.
No.
Well, you didn't specify that yesterday, Mike. And yes, Rock
why
is
are you
half
yelling
black.
At me? I didn't specify that. You brought it up, and I just said no. There weren't that many. Name them, and you can't because there aren't any.
Listen,
there are very few.
Hey, I didn't say anything about how I don't want Kofi as the champion. I haven't said that one time. I love Kofi. I'd love to see the world title on Kofi. I'd love to see the world title on Big E. I listen. Everybody's super high on Xavier Woods, but like of the 3, here's the thing. When I look at this, I look at let's potentially fantasy book based on the parameters that we actually have with WWE, which is that you got a crazy old guy in charge, Vince McMahon, okay? Of those 3 guys, who is he most likely to make world champion? It's Big E. I wanted Big E to go single years ago. I thought this guy's got so much potential. Why is he just in this random tag team? Well, they never did. I think that Big E would be a great champion. Kofi Kingston, they gave him his opportunity. Kofi Kingston's been on fire. You want to put the world title on Kofi Kingston? Go for it. Now, I disagreed with the idea of Kofi Kingston just getting the title Elimination Chamber. Did anybody listen to what I said? I said, listen, if you want to make Kofi the champion, go for it. But it should be a longer build if you're going to do it. And maybe Kofi is a guy that is a better challenger than a champion. We don't know. But what I do know is that if you want to do it at WrestleMania, then you can do some sort of screw job finish at Fastlane, and then he gets the title of Mania. Do I think they're going to do that? No, I don't think they're going to do that. I still think that Big E is going to turn on the guy, and like I said, if you want to make Big E the champion and have Kofi chase Big E, and Kofi wins the title from Big E at SummerSlam, hey, I think that could be a great story. I don't know what they're going to do, but I have no problem with the idea of putting the title on Kofi Kingston. I just didn't think that they should do it on Sunday. And everybody freaking out about it. I was just telling them to calm down. It's not the end of the world. Kofi didn't get the title on Sunday.
Because we don't know what bumped the ratings, as we talked about in the first segment. Roman J on Twitter, could the SmackDown ratings bump be from WWE believably and seriously featuring an African-American talent at such a high level for the first time in a long time, perhaps respecting a huge and often neglecting a demographic paid off? Don't give them that much credit this early, sir, as far as that neglected demographic, which, as we just talked about with the Chris Hemsworth Hulk Hogan biopic that won't touch on any of that stuff, they have not been the best recently. So this was nice, but this was also a replacement for Mustafa Ali that would have never happened if he had not gotten hurt. So I'm not willing to give them that much credit that yet. And also, as Bryan maintains his opinion and where he believes they should go, I still am of the belief that I would not put the belt on Kofi Kingston. I would actually lean towards Big E myself, but I still continue to believe that you don't have to break them up. And you could also have Kofi and Xavier in the tag mix while you have Big E going after the world title, and then you could have that happy story that way too.
This person is appalled that you did not mention Booker T as the world champion.
You know what but do you know what a lot of people think of, especially in that demographic? And I am not trying to speak for them, but people that I, online and things like that I have talked to over the years, what is stuck in their crawl is still that Triple H match from WrestleMania with the lead up that went into it.
Yeah, it was horrible.
And how the end happened, that still really sticks in people's crawl. And yes, the King Booker stuff was great. Him with the big gold belt was great. But as far as, again, that is, I will leave that for a lot of other people to talk about because I know we can move on to other things. But that really does bother a lot of people, and I don't blame them.
This person says Booker T was not only a world champion, he was the champion of champions. He won a triple threat match against the other two world champions at the time. That's right, he did. This person here says, is it possible the Raw number was up because people wanted to see the fallout to what Becky did to Ronda and Charlotte? Yes, it is possible, but again, the Raw number was up in the first hour, and it was back to normal by the third hour. Like, nobody stuck around to see if she was going to come out for that Ronda Rousey match, which, because there's a feud with Ronda and Charlotte, you would presume that she would be there for the Ronda match. They didn't stick around for that. SmackDown, I mean, there was no indication whatsoever that she was going to even be on the show, and they stayed around for the whole show. So, not to mention, like, what about all those times she was advertised for the show, and nobody tuned in with these numbers? So, no, you cannot do that. This person here says, more on Thor. Get out of here with Thor. This person says, Chris Evans, the actor that played Captain America, put on 70 pounds to fill the Captain America frame. They do great things in Hollywood these days. Hulk Hogan was 320 to 340 pounds in the 80s. Chris Hemsworth ain't getting to 240.
He was not 340.
He was 320. Minimum, he was 320. This person says, my first thought when I think of an African-American champion is Ron Simmons. Yes, but he was not the champion in WWE. This person here says, am I seeing this correctly? On NXT, Gargano and Ciampa are feuding, but on SmackDown, they're a tag team. Yeah, that's what's happening.
The Bashams.
It is the Bashams. Because Vince is going to do whatever he wants to do. Dave and I were talking about this last night. Dave was, like, appalled that they're doing this. And to me, it's like, dude, when you've been building up something for over a year, and it's all building towards Gargano and Ciampa at the WrestleMania TakeOver, and your crazy father-in-law decides, I'm going to bring him up as a team. Like, what's the guy supposed to do? You know what I mean? Just, like, throw away a year's worth of storylines to just go along with the stuff on Raw, which, by the way, I mean, Vince could break him up next week. You don't even know what Vince is going to do. He could beat him. He could take him off TV. Like, you're going to spoil over a year's worth of planning just because of what Vince did on the main roster. As an NXT fan, I'm happy to ignore what they're doing on the main roster and just enjoy NXT television. That's what I think. Can't blame Hunter for that. I feel bad for the guy.
NXT's going to end up on FS1, aren't they?
NXT?
Yeah.
No.
Sooner or later, like within the next 2 years, they're going to end up on FS1.
I'd make you a bet, actually, on that one.
That they are or they're not?
They're not. What's going to end up on FS1 is SmackDown. And NXT is going to stay on the WWE Network.
That's possible. I guess that's very possible. But we'll see.
This person says, the best Hogan impression I've ever seen was from the Velveteen Dream. What about Jay Lethal? I'm not sure either of them are going to play Hulk Hogan, but both did a pretty good job.
I don't think Jay Lethal is going to play Hulk Hogan, no.
This person says, TV ratings are 1,000 times more important than a long-term NXT storyline. Okay, if Gargano and Ciampa are going to move the ratings consistently for the next road to WrestleMania, then maybe you could make that argument. But they're not going to. So I'm sticking with my NXT.
And if you were banking on them to, I would have done it a lot differently.
Person says ratings are increasing due to Lacey Evans.
Oh, God. See, this is what you do.
Kofi is super hot right now, more over than Seth. Him winning the title is a must-see WrestleMania moment. Well, listen, there's going to have to be some big-time changes for that to happen. Because that's not the plan right now. And don't yell at me, I'm not booking. Like this idiot. Why does Bryan hate Becky? I don't hate Becky. Like, if I point out facts, I hate Becky. Like, you'd rather I just made up stuff and lied? It's my job to tell you what happened. What happened was she wasn't on the show and the ratings were up. All that means is she's not moving numbers. She wasn't moving numbers before. She's not moving numbers now. It's okay to still like her. It's okay to still push her to the main event of WrestleMania. This is all okay because nobody's moving numbers right now. Nobody. Not one person. So I guess that means I hate everybody.
But you don't know if it was a good thing or not that they're actually doing this stuff with her.
What are you talking about? It's a good storyline.
No, because originally, well, you don't know if it's moving numbers. Like, it doesn't matter if
it's not moving numbers
because you've already talked about it being incremental. Which, yes, so who cares? Nothing's going to move them overnight. So why are you harping on the fact that she's not moving them right now?
I'm pointing it out.
You say that about everybody on the roster.
I just said that about everybody on the roster. There's nobody moving numbers right now. Not one person.
But you always point at Becky.
Maybe
you don't point out the Revival and go, those guys aren't moving numbers.
Because not one person emails me telling me that the Revival are the most overact on the show. Nobody.
Now they will.
Oh, no, they won't. Not on this one.
If Jim Cornette emails you, he will say the Revival are the most over people on that show to him.
Person says, how petty is Vince to cancel The Undertaker and remove him from StarCast? He's removed from the website. Well, when they announce he's not there, then we can worry about it. But I don't know if he's been removed or not. I mean, they had a contract. I mean, I guess WWE could pay Conrad like a preposterous amount of money and have him remove The Undertaker. I'm sure Conrad would be fine with that, but I don't know what the situation is right now. I have absolutely no idea. Let's head to a break. Back in a moment with more Wrestling Observer Live. Hey, let's derail the show with some XFL talk, everybody. XFL has called a press conference for Monday to announce the coach and GM of the Seattle team. So if I'm not here Monday, you know where I'm at.
The Seattle Heat.
Just so you know. Yeah, the Seattle Heat. It's going to be the name of this thing right here. Also, this person here had a question. Says, AEW made some production changes to add more seats. They sold out in a minute. If they continue to make changes, what's the max amount of seats they can do? All of them.
Hanging from the rafters.
They can sell that place out, probably 20,000 seats.
SRO, baby.
I don't think they're going to do that. That would mean no stage, fans right up close to that ring.
Full house, no vacancy.
Okay, so I've been told that everybody who's concerned about The Undertaker right now, and who says he's been pulled from the StarCast site, he actually has not been pulled. If you go to the StarCast site, and you go to the Superstars tab, he is right next to Sting. So he has not been removed. So let's not throw out rumors that he's no longer part of StarCast. He's still there on the official StarCast 2 website, starcast.com. 2 R's for StarCast. We're out of time, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with more. There may be special guest in studio tomorrow. Very excited about that.
Really?
And we'll probably have Dr. Lucha on. We'll see how it goes with our special guest. I presume Mike will still be here. 4's a crowd, so we'll see what we end up doing tomorrow. But a lot of big stuff coming up. Check out more at WrestlingObserver.com. All sorts of great stuff up there, everybody, so head up there and check it out. And that is it. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. Talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.